All right, guys, it's Q. Welcome back to another episode of The Ride. Today's conversation was with Coach Ryan Lanigan, the current defensive coordinator at Sienna University. Coach Lanigan is going into his second year at Sienna. Before that, he held the head coach role at Russell Sage College for 6 years, where he started the program. And he was also the assistant coach at Misericordia for 2 years and held an assistant coach role for 1 year at Assumption College. He holds the top 4 single season records at Lebanon Valley College for turnovers. And that's kind of where I started the conversation, kind of getting into the mind of not only a defender who played well and, was out there playing team defense, but one that could disrupt and cause turnovers. So I talked to him a lot about that. We touch a lot on slide and recovery. That was not something I went into the show thinking we were going to talk about. But, when we peel back the onion on what coach was doing with the defense last year at Sienna that led to a very successful MAC championship there at the end of the year. A lot of slide and recovery pieces. We also have a great drill that focuses on slide and recovery specifically against the pairs set that a lot of offenses are running today. So a lot of that, but we got into the weeds on a ton. So really great stuff. As always, hopefully you find some value in it and enjoy the ride. Welcome to the show, Ryan Lanigan. Coach Lanigan, appreciate you joining us. We were just having a milk versus coffee debate, which I didn't think we'd ever start a show with, but you're a milk guy?
Well, like I said, man, I try to stay away from caffeine, man. I think it can be a little addicting and you come relying on it. So is sugar. So I'm not saying chocolate milk's much better than a coffee in the morning, but try to get a workout in the morning, try to get a little protein in me, and it's fine. Every pair that comes on a tour has a coffee in their hand, right? I get it, but I'm trying to stay away. I tell the kids that are 16 when they come on the visit, you see the Starbucks there, stay away, man. Like, save yourself a lot of money in the long run.
I got it. And you worked in some pre-workout in there as well. Were you a big pre-workout guy at Lebanon Valley?
Yeah, that's why I had to stop, because it's like it'd be game time and I'd be yawning because I didn't have pre-workout yet. You know what I mean? So I just became too reliant on it. So I had to cut it out of my life, and much better for it.
I've seen the creatine come back too. Do you remember that, in the day, we were about the same age, I think. Remember creatine was this kind of pseudo, you didn't want to take creatine, only the real, I don't know, out there guys were taking creatine for the most part. Now it's you take it for mental health.
Yeah, man.
Have you seen that?
For sure. I remember when we were growing up, it was if you're going to take creatine, you better be drinking tons of water, right? That's really all they said. We have college athletes that are definitely on creatine right now, right? They want that extra pump in the weight room. They want a little bigger, so yeah, it's a thing.
All right. Well, that's not the traditional start to the show that I've ever had, but I appreciate you joining, man. I was very fortunate to meet you in the summertime when you were on your, recruiting trail. We got to, meet in Virginia Beach, where I'm from. You came down for a tournament. We got to connect. It was a good time. We also had Kyle Hayes. Kyle was my most recent podcast guest, and you're on now. So I appreciate that very much for joining, Ryan.
Yeah, man, I had a blast. I think me and Kyle will probably do that event every summer. It's kind of like at the end of the summer, there's not many other events going on. We get to go to some beautiful area, hang out with you, And honestly, what was refreshing about that event, we do a lot of events in the Northeast, and I don't want to say these guys are spoiled, but they're playing in the best events. There's college coaches around all the time. Or those guys at Virginia Beach, man, that was probably, a lot of them their first event where there's college coaches around, right? So it was, you could tell they cared a little more. It was refreshing for sure.
Yeah, so one of the only tournaments I'm sure you ended up on a boat at the end of the night too. Come on,
That is true. True. We had a good time.
Yeah. So look, we're talking pre-episode, and I appreciate the kind words about the show and the podcast, saying that you listened to some. I did not expect you to say that the Mark Hargrave first episode was your favorite, and that's just because it was the first one. We were kind of doing it as a flyer, but you mentioned Hampton Roads and that being of interest to you and the growth there and how that kind of spread elsewhere, but would love to hear from that.
Yeah, I think just hearing, he's a Long Island transplant like myself. Definitely have some similarities in terms of, his upbringing and the culture of Long Island lacrosse, and then going outside of it. When I went to college in central Pennsylvania, man, I remember doing a camp, and we're just doing a simple drill. We're doing picks behind the cage, and those guys have never seen a pick before. It's oh my gosh, man. So, I was saying it was one of my favorite podcasts. Is to learn about new areas and the growth of the game, but also kind of made me sad because it made me realize It's unfortunately it's not just a Hampton Roads problem to help grow the game, right? If you're outside of the hotbeds of Philly, New Jersey, New England, Baltimore, right? The obvious hotbeds we have now, it's really hard to get the game going. I guess I'd almost challenge any lacrosse fans listening, man. This game's done a lot for you. Go give back, man. Go coach the youth. It's fun. It's addicting. Yeah, it's just we need it. We need more coaches and we need more refs, and especially if you're in an area that is kind of untapped. Like if you played any lick of high school, college lacrosse, man, there's a good chance you can help someone. So please get back to the game.
Yeah, I definitely echo that 100%. Are you guys recruiting non-hotbed guys, and how are you doing so? How does that compare to what you're doing? Obviously, up in New York, you kind of have the cream of the crop up there, but how are you guys approaching non-hotbed?
Yeah, we're fortunate, right? I think being Sienna in the capital region of New York, we have a good reputation in the Northeast, especially around the city. So we crush Long Island. This class, the freshman class we have right now, is heavy Long Island. I'm from Long Island. Head coach is from Long Island. So we do well there. We do well in Syracuse. We do well in the Northeast, but it's not like we're afraid to go outside the Northeast, right? We think there's good lacrosse players everywhere. So if we see you on the recruiting trail, right, we got a couple guys from Chicago. We got a freshman from Seattle, Washington this year. So we've recruited guys off of our prospect day. As a young man from Kentucky we're talking to, you know what I mean? So for us, if we just think you're good, and not necessarily how good you are September 1st, your junior year, it's how good do we think you're going to be by the time you get to Sienna, right? We kind of project more than we care about how good you are as a junior in high school, because we think it adds value for us.
What is the conversation the coaching staff is having when you look at a guy from Kentucky? Are you saying, hey, look, this guy isn't playing high-level competition every single week? Well, what other things are you looking at when you have to consider, hey, we want to bring this guy on for the next 4 years and we don't want to make a mistake?
For sure, especially with this roster cap now, which I know you've had some conversations on. You want to make sure you're right. Not that you didn't want to make sure you're right beforehand, but it's tight now, And I think there's a pros and cons to it, right? Like I think if you're from Kentucky, you're probably when you make the jump to Division I lacrosse, the speed of the game is probably going to be much bigger than the Long Island guy. But at the same time, you probably haven't, no disrespect to, there's some good coaches in Kentucky. I'm not trying to say that, but compared to what you have in Long Island, like to us, that guy hasn't even touched his potential, hasn't even, maybe even been taught a V-hold, right? Mm-hmm. Or just played at the level that some of us in the Northeast or what, some of these hotbeds are fortunate to be a part of, right? So for us, it's like, imagine we get him around some other good players and some high-level competition, and it's like, this guy can grow into something. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we're not against it for sure.
I love that idea of potential, too, because I have a lot of guys, obviously, that go off and play college, that play for Catholic High, where I'm at right now, and the coordinator there. And I always think that they're overlooked because we're not, in Maryland or New York, all these places you're talking about. And I always say, man, that those guys got a good one. The flourish that's going to happen once they get around that competition, their ceiling is much higher than these coaches actually think they are a lot of the times.
And to be fair, you guys are overlooked. And I guess to defend the college coaching side, it's like, it's especially being at the Division I level now, right? I've been assistant at D1, D2, D3. I've been a head coach myself. If you're at Division I level, it's like, why wouldn't you almost recruit from AA events? You know what I mean? And because those are the kids that are from the best high schools and the best club teams, and they're playing against the best competition year round. So it's like, it's a big risk, honestly, to go outside that comfort zone. You know what I mean? But sometimes that risk pays off.
I know we're spending a ton of time early in recruiting, but I like the quick rabbit hole that we're in. For those players that are maybe not from those areas, or their coaches that are coaching in those areas, what is I don't want to say criteria, but what is that extra oomph that makes you guys take the risk, right? Obviously talent comes into play and all that, but like, what are those little pieces that you say, hey, we're going to go for this guy in Kentucky?
Yeah. We like athletes, at Sienna. So like if you're like a football running back and basketball point guard and long athletic defender or something like that, like, I think that helps. I think, when you're playing at that level, when you're playing maybe against lesser competition, you still have to make the right looks, and you still got to, almost score at will, right? I think, if you put Lyle Thompson down in Virginia Beach, that guy, if you put Lyle Thompson anywhere, he's going to score 100 goals, right?
Sure.
So like, let's we want to see guys producing every game, and not just, you know, Hargrave talked about this in his podcast, right? Like scoring 100 goals in Virginia Beach isn't maybe as impressive as scoring 35 on Long Island, but are you scoring 20 goals versus the team that hasn't played lacrosse for and getting 1 goal against the state champs, or are you getting 10 goals against both of them? I mean, I think if you're producing against the higher level competition, that'll help you, but it takes a team, right? It takes coaching. It takes a lot that goes into it, obviously. So it's easier said than done.
So upstate New York, are you guys looking at box at all, like a player's box background?
For sure. My last school, I used to recruit pretty heavily off the reservations, and we have 2 Canadians on our team now. One was a very high pick in the junior A draft. So usually for offense, but we're also we've looked at Canadian goalies and we had a young man from Aquasesceny that just graduated from our team last year. That was a heck of a box player. Still is a heck of a box player because those guys continue to play as they grow old. So we're not against it. Especially on offense. Those guys know how to score goals.
I'm going to switch the conversation really quick and kind of on the more player development side, or kind of just jumping in between the lines here.
Yep.
I was looking at your bio. You hold, I believe, at least at the time of the writing, the top 4 single season cause turnover records at Lebanon Valley College. I don't know if that still holds. Is that still there?
I haven't checked in a while, but I'd imagine.
Okay. It's a hell of a feat. How did you go about developing that play style to? You don't see that a lot at all. Like holding the top 4, all 4 of your seasons at the top. I would love to know how you develop that sense.
Well, I'll kind of I'll put it in a little more. It's impressive, but it's also I played for a new program in college, so like we're not like a 100-year historic program. So I think that has something to do with it. But I was just fortunate, man. I think I had a different mindset than a lot of kids. I wanted to. A lot of guys have a dream to play in Division I lacrosse. I just wanted to play. I was a football, basketball, lacrosse player all 4 years in high school, and being a 5'11", stocky power forward in basketball, I didn't play that much my senior year, right? And rightfully so. So to me, that was like the epiphany, like, man, I just want to go somewhere and make an impact. So I went to a startup D3 program, and, I went from, my high school team was pretty good. My senior year, I went to Connecticut High School. It's on Long Island, and, we had like 3 big time names, right? We had this kid, Zach Oliveri, who was a goalie for the United States Under-19 team in 2011 that won gold, played at UMass in Stony Brook. This kid, Mike Pellegrino, who 2-time captain at Johns Hopkins. He's now coaching in the NFL, which is crazy. He's coached for the Patriots, coaching for the Bills now. He was a freak, man, still is a freak. And then Kieran McCardle, who's one of those attackmen on the Water Dogs, right? So I went from covering Kieran every day, who was pretty darn good, and it was really hard to get the ball out of his stick, to them playing Division III lacrosse. I mean, I was conference player of the week my first week in college, So it's just, I think a lot goes into it. I think I had really good coaches in high school that taught me the fundamentals of how to V-hole and all that kind of stuff. And then I had a great coach in college, Coach John Haas, who All-American at UNC himself. He coached it. He was the head coach at UNC. He was the head coach at Johns Hopkins before he went to Lebanon Valley, and that was a big reason why I went there. I wanted to play for a coach with his kind of resume. And the thing I loved about him the most, he's just a man's man, great human, great family man, but he let the players play, and I think there's a lot of ways to coach, and that's the beauty of coaching. There's disciplinarians, there's guys that tell you how to do everything, there's guys that let the athletes be athletes, and Coach Haas let me play to my strengths. And so I think a combination of, I had coaches that allowed me, that taught me the fundamentals, and also let me be aggressive, let me do things a little out of the box. And I went from covering the best players on Long Island to covering Division III players. And then, really, for any player out there that's listening, I don't care what position you are, become as athletic as you can. Become dedicated to speed training, become dedicated to the weight room, become dedicated to your diet. And that's really probably what helped me and took me to the next team. I was dedicated to yoga. I can still put my leg behind my head to this day, even though I'm much heavier than I was, and I'm 33 years old, man, because I really committed to be the best athlete I could, and it paid off.
Yeah, I want to talk about the mentality of causing turnovers, right? Of being a disruptive defender as opposed to kind of just being out there playing defense. And you know what's interesting is when we were growing up, I don't know if it was this way on Long Island, I heard college coaches saying, hey, the best check to throw is no check, because it's all about body positioning and it's all about just making sure you don't get beat. And I know there's coaches all over the map even at that time, but I do feel like there is an element of the checks and the turnovers are coming back into the game, kind of like they were maybe back in the day when you see those Syracuse highlights and they're going over the head and ding-donging and all that stuff. But I'm just fascinated with the idea of like causing turnovers, how we balance that with playing sound defense. So just interested from your play style.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily what I call like a shark, where I was chasing guys and just all over the field. I kind of knew my strengths. I was a stout defender, and I would sit and wait for you with my stick out in front, which, that's one of my pet peeves when the guys don't put their stick out in front. Why not? You got 6-foot pole, man. Use it to your advantage, right? When it's to the side, you might as well play short stick. And so I think a lot of my caused turnovers, actually, especially once I built a reputation that I was, and as any pole is hard to dodge against, right? Everyone's dodging short sticks these days anyway. So I'd say a lot of my caused turnovers were, seeing the back of someone's head and sliding to that rollback, or and this is where I benefit Coach Haas. Like every defensive coach, every coach is going to say, put your stick in the lane. Well, I was playing at a pretty high level, and I would bait guys. My stick would be down the side, pretend like I wasn't paying attention. But trust me, I was paying attention, and I'd pick that pass off, or, I played a lot of wings, obviously, as an LSM, and causing turnovers there, and things like that. But on ball, I hate a wrap check. I hate a slap check. I don't think it works. And I take that from covering Kieran McCardle every day, right? Like, didn't work, and then he would just get mad at me. Yeah, his stick protection's elite, right? It's like he tucks it in. You can't, and I'm a big believer in a poke, dig, lift, right? Like that can opener kind of check, right? I think that's, to me, combining that with V-holds is the best way to play defense, in my opinion, right? So anytime someone would dodge on me, and actually sometimes I'd give him like the alley. If I knew he was a righty, I'd actually kind of let him go to his right, knowing he was going to take it, and I was actually a step ahead of him because he didn't want to go to his left, right? Like, it's just these guys that play at one hand, man, I'm telling you, it makes life much easier for us on the defensive side, So stick out in front, get in the hands. I don't necessarily always need a poke check. I think these guys are so athletic these days but just making them make their move 6 feet before but then getting on the hands, man, and just getting in between their hands and getting their, if they have two hands on the stick, I'm putting the head of my stick in between your hands every single time. And I'm can opening, and I'm lifting, I'm digging, and I'm staying on it. And then
define dig, and obviously a lift, but define dig. Like, what are you looking for with that?
So it's like, if a player's got two hands on his stick, he's usually got like that gap where you could poke in between, I don't know how to best describe it, but poke in between that area, right? And then once you're in there, you kind of like rip it out. You dig it out like you can see me if you're watching the Zoom. If you don't have on Apple Podcasts later, you're like scooping up, digging out, trying to like almost lift, can open that stick there, right? And it's going to force offensive players. If you don't drop from two hands to one hand, I am going to take the ball out of your stick. So now I just made you the only way to keep the ball. Now you have one hand on your stick. And guess what? You're a lot less effective with one hand on your stick. You can't really shoot. You can't really pass. You got to eventually put two hands on your stick. And then when you put two hands on your stick again, I'm going to dig again, or I'm going to lift you again, or I'm going to trail check you at that point because you ran to a dangerous spot. You have no other thing to do but shoot. So, just total believer in stick out in front, just getting on the hands. Sometimes it's even just like laying it there on the hands, right? You don't have to necessarily do anything, but just being a little bit of a nuisance. And that throw that the guy makes, and that's a little off target, buys your defense another second. And, I think that's what makes good defense.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when I see guys, especially take one hand off the stick, like when they throw that poke check and take the second hand off, when a guy's coming at them. How do you feel about throwing checks, where your hand placement is, all that stuff, when a guy is going horizontal or backwards as opposed to immediately coming into that body?
Yeah, I think if you're, I think a lot of it depends on where you're on the field and stuff, but I think in the general sense, if someone's dodging at you, I believe the best thing to do is throw a poke check. But I always teach guys, you can't lunge and throw that poke check. If you lunge and throw that poke check, if you take a step forward and throw that poke check, you're toast. These guys are too athletic. There's no way you can after moving forward, turn around and run full speed with a guy that's already running full speed, right? So you got to drop step. You got to give grounds when you throw that poke check, because now you poke them as hard as you can in the gut, and you also step back while you do it. You still keep that 6 feet cushion. And then maybe that guy wants to move it because you just took the wind out of him because you hit him so well in the belly button, And but then if they get to a dangerous area on the field, right? We call it the paint here at Sienna, right? Like any kind of really, if you're in any kind of shooting space, right? At that point, it's no more checks. It's being physical. It's playing with your hands, playing with your fists and your feet, and trying to drive them to a non-dangerous area or an area that we can slide to easily. So one thing, and I like to watch a lot of lacrosse and study a lot of coaches and players. And I remember years ago, and I know Coach Hayes is big in the basketball, your last podcast guest, and I was a basketball player growing up. It definitely helped ease my transition into lacrosse. You see in lacrosse, we were probably taught at our age when we were playing the drop step. They don't teach drop steps anymore. They teach hip flips, right? It's just more athletic, it's more active, and yes, you're taking 2 feet off the ground, but it's a very quick split second, and you're more athletic and able to run with these guys. And kind of the new thing, especially as like a D midi, is if you're about to get swept on, you're trying to force them down the alley, and you're about to get swept on. I think a lot of people have taught like, all right, that's where you drop step or hip flip and try to run with them. They're stepping upfield, almost like an NBA pick, right? Where they come off the pick and you see that center like take an upfield step and make them go around them. You're seeing that at the PLL right now.
It's a more confrontational step.
Yes, they're making them go all the way around. And see, you can't go through them in a way, right? So, and we're trying to teach that here at Sienna. Easier said than done, but yeah, it's definitely, it works.
Yeah, I've been getting more into the kick steps and watching defensive backs, and that's kind of where I'm picking up a lot of the open field footwork concepts. But I do remember Lack's film room. This was 10 years ago when I was still coaching at the college level, but he was talking about the hip flip versus the drop step, and it was a huge debate. How are you coaching that? Maybe primarily to defense or to your defensive midfielders, or
yeah, usually the D mids, and really just kind of getting reps at it. Just like doing some quick 1v1s from time to time. My guys, we do a talent show every year, and one of the guys did an impersonation of me, and he said, "Gentleman approaches." And that was his impersonation, because I talk about approaches all the time. I think, to me, defense is, I don't want to say it's simple, because it's not, but I think at any level you're watching, the pro level, the college level, the high school level, the youth level, you name it. To me, I categorize goals into 3 categories. There's goals where I say the ball doesn't bounce your way, right? The goalie's head mesh rips and it goes through. You deflect the pass and it goes in the cage. And yes, you can argue that he should have picked it off, whatever. But like sometimes it's unfortunate, right? Things don't go your way. So that's one type of goal. Another type of goal we like to categorize is tip of the cap, good offense, right? Like, hey man, that was just it was a great dodge, great skip pass, great shot. Sometimes good offense beats good defense. But I'd say 90% of the goals out there are due to self-inflicted wounds in the defensive end. Bad approach, not having the one slide, not having the 2 slide, slow to rotate. Any of those controllable things is what we spend 100% of our time on here at Sienna trying to control, and that's one of them being approaches. And, if you can have a good approach, man, it makes life so much easier for you.
Break down the nuance of teaching that approach. Maybe I'm a new player coming in for the first season at Sienna. What are you doing in fall with these approaches?
Yeah, good question. The Georgetown head coach, I remember the beauty of, and this is why I'm happy to kind of share my knowledge. I wouldn't be where I am today without other coaches in the past going to the convention and hearing what they have to say. And I remember one year, Coach Warren, literally his whole thing was he broke down the approach into 6 steps. Crazy, like a science. Mm-hmm. I didn't go that deep into it, right? Because I think sometimes less is more, and try to make things simple. And to me, it's more about where you're positioning yourself, and you're trying to. I don't necessarily I want them to go down the side, but I think there was an old school, like, Bill Tierney at Princeton. It was like you're lateral. You're basically parallel to the sideline. I don't necessarily want that. I want you to be a little athletic. I want you to squirm up a little bit, but I do want him to go down the side. I think makes our life easier, right? So when we're watching film, and it's really more about our film work. We do a lot of 6v6 work. We do a lot of 4v4s and things like that, obviously, and so we watch film nearly every day, and it's usually like 10, 15 minutes, and it's just teaching points and what we call juice plays, and because there's also good plays in there that we like to celebrate. But I mean, I could tell. I mean, I could. And I guess I coach lacrosse for a living, but you could tell if the guys can take the middle of the field just based on the approach, right? And it's like
Is that
usually
where the guys lined up, or is it?
it's where he's lined up.
Yeah,
I don't,
I know
and
what you mean.
yeah, it's not. I think going back to the coach Haas mentality, let your players play. I think everyone's strengths are different. I think some people are good at playing the guy outside the box. I think some people have to wait at the box. I think, some people like to crowbar, some people like to drive. Some people like that reverse V hold seatbelt kind of things. Like everyone's a little different, but I think at the base level, whether you close, we want you to take space, right? If you hear me coaching on the sideline, I always say take space, take space, take space. I don't want them to get a running start. I want you to go crowd them. And when you crowd them, you got to make sure you're not inviting the middle of the field. If he's going to take the middle of the field, then you're going to jam him. He's got to run around you, right? He's got to really not attack downhill towards the cage. We got to drive him and make sure he doesn't, perpetrate the box, so to say, right? He's going to. So, I mean, it's really just, I say, approaching the top shoulder, right? So if you're upfield shoulder, upfield foot, right, just try to entice him to make sure he goes down the alley all the time. Talk about it all the time.
Yeah. Well, a little bit more nuance on the footwork of approaching when you're teaching it. Obviously, again, it is simple, but it can be broken down, like you were saying, in this whatever different steps you want to do as a coach. But I would love to get into the first retreat steps too, because I'm getting into kick stepping and all that stuff on those first pieces. But yeah, tell me more about the approach. Let's stay here.
Yeah, and I get the beauty of it. I think everyone's a little different. I've seen really successful D middies that are so patient, and they literally sit there flat-footed, and they wait for their midi to make a move, and if they make the move at them, they're bench pressing them. And if they go down the alley, they just wait and for the trail position, and then they're so athletic they can stay in that trail position. And I think that's, I don't want to say typical, but I think probably the classic approach is, almost like it's all sports are so similar, right? Think about it in football when you go make a tackle. Big stride, big stride, big stride. As you get closer, you chop those feet, and then you explode. Right? I think an approach in lacrosse is similar. You got to run and take that space, but as you get closer, if you're taking big strides, the guy's going to burn you. So you got to start breaking down, chopping those feet as you get closer, and then stay in an athletic stance and be able to read him, react where he's going, and understand that for the way we play defense here at Sienna, we like to slide to alley dodges. We don't want to slide to sweep. We don't want them to sweep at all. I just think it makes life very difficult. So we'd almost invite you. I tell them I'd rather you get beat without touching him down the alley than get beat towards the middle, getting downhill. And of course, I still want you to touch him, be aggressive, win a matchup. But yeah, go take that space. Don't let them get a running start. Don't let them be comfortable. We want to be the ones dictating out here. And chopping those feet, breaking down, being athletic, and letting him make the first move. So many guys, it's like they take one jab step, and we're so quick to go freaking cross-check them, and then they freaking sweep right by us, right? Like we just got to be a little more patient, got to be in that trail position. And, and that's if you're forcing them down the alley, man, our goalie likes that shot. We like to slide to it. We could be aggressive. We can jump it. We could push out of X, so it's constantly talked about in our program.
Patience is, I feel like, one of the more undercoached, or I guess underthought about trait when it comes to just being a great defender. You look at those corners, man, that have to guard the craziest wide receivers, the most athletic people in the world, and they're barely moving. Yes. As they're like very minute steps that they're taking, but you can see their body posture is very patient on those first moves. I love that.
I'm a Denver Broncos fan, so Pat Surtain is the he's the prototype, man. The guy's built in a factory. Like it's. I remember watching a video online and like Chad Ochocinco's trying to tell like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson how to like win a 1v1 press coverage, and they're like, dude, if you did that against Pat Surtain, you'd be toast. It's he's just different level. But I'm with you. It's a beautiful thing to watch them, be in motion.
Yeah. No, I love it. How are you? I call it hand fighting. People call it, that first engage portion where you're chunking a guy. How are you coaching that piece where you have to then involve your upper body, obviously?
Yeah, you talking more D mid or pole or both, or
tell me about both. Let's start D mid and work our way.
Yeah, and again, going back to the way I believe is letting our players play. Some of our guys like crowbars, which are now kind of illegal in Division I lacrosse, depending on I think they're basically going to call hold every time.
Free the crowbar.
Yeah, it's I'm not the biggest fan of it, but one of our top teammates is very good at it. So, I let him kind of.
Hold on, why aren't you a fan of the crowbar? It's pretty disruptive. You get
I
it.
just
You're
don't. I just
doing.
don't think it's a real lacrosse play. It's like it's just you're pulling at his free arm, right? There's a reason they're calling it the hold. Like it's not. It's not
Yeah.
lacrosse.
You're
It's
in a way. I don't like the crowbar because all the young guys think it's about knocking the guy down.
right.
I tell them all the time it's about repositioning yourself. It's
Well,
about getting.
and of course, that's what my D-Mitty says. You know what I mean? So we're trying to test the limits in our fall scrimmages to see what the refs are calling. And actually, we played UMass most recently. Great program, great players, great coaches, all that kind of stuff, obviously. And one of their guys went for a crowbar and got hold penalty almost immediately. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's been a point of emphasis. They last year and this year they just think it's a dangerous play, and they talked about. I asked the refs before the game. They're like, if we see any disadvantage given, we're going to call a hold. So
If we see any disadvantage given to the offense, is what they meant. Because that's
yes,
how it works.
yes.
Look. All sports are directed officiating wise towards the offense. That's what it is.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But anyway, so some guys are good at the crowbar, some guys are good at the V hold, some guys are good at driving, some guys are good at lifting. So, I think for us, my philosophy is, I think there's other coaches out there, like I know Coach Byrne at Harvard when he was at the Notre Dame, he wanted his D-middies to constantly force rollbacks, right? Like he wasn't a believer in driving them one way. He was, force rollback, force rollback, force rollback, and then eventually that slide's going to come. They're not ready for it. I teach here at Sienna. Once they basically pick away, we do want to drive them that way because we're a big slide and recovery team. We like to be athletic and aggressive and go out in the hands and make them make a play. And so once if they do beat us in a sweep, we're just going to stay in its hip and continue to drive them out. I think as D-middies, you're better off not throwing checks, but I mean, there's been so many good D-middies over the years, especially at the Division I level, that are just like throwing these crazy V-holds and seat belts and knocking the ball out. And it's like, I'm not going to take away what makes you great,
Yeah.
just like Coach Haas didn't take away what made me great, right? And
So those
so,
D,
but
those
I,
those D middies that are good at that stuff for you, it's more of a they have to work on that on their own. You're not in practice saying, "Hey, we're going to spend 10 minutes
correct.
developing this." Okay.
Correct. What we say in practice is, hey, we're going to do 1v1s, test the waters, right? Like, see what you're good at. See if you're better at playing them at 40 yards or playing them, waiting for them at 30. Play your angles. See what checks you like, and then we try to adjust based on that. What's working for you, And then talking about poles, I'm a big V-hole fan, right? Like it drives me insane when kids don't V-hold. I think. If you're a righty covering a righty coming around X and you're just in that cross check hold, man, his hands are free. And I think that's to be a good defender, you got to be on their hands. And so, we had a player last year started every game for us. And again, this is kind of my philosophy. We're going to play to our strengths. So he didn't like V holding, but he was so good at everything else. He was so good at slide recognition. He was so good at sliding. He was so good at playing a lefty because he didn't have to V hold as a righty, right? So unfortunately,
Yeah.
not unfortunately, but we put him on a lefty every single game, because I just didn't want to see him not V-hold. And, we're fortunate enough to win the MAC championship with him starting every single game as a true freshman, right? So, but you could bet your tail that, because I joined middle of last year, right? So it was definitely a whirlwind. I had a young kid at home, learning new names, learning new terminology and things like that. And but this fall, you could bet we've been working on the V-hold with him. So he'll be able to cover more than just a lefty this year.
I love favoring matchups. I love getting my guys into the best position possible. So for you to say, "Hey, I'm putting him on a lefty every time," that warms my heart, man. Because that's what I'm about, is making sure the matchups look most positive and control what we can control.
No, I was big in the matchups, but I'm also not because we're such a slide and recovery
Sure.
team. So I do think the matchup matters, and if we can win matchups, great. But I think there are teams out there that are so matchup heavy, show and no go. And if you lose your matchup, great. Where we are like, let's win our matchup, let's have good slide recognition, and if we're beat, let's go. You know what I mean? Like I'm a big, math's kind of my background. I'm big about playing the odds. I think some people like seeing an alley shot. I don't like seeing any shots, right? I want to end every possession with a shot clock violation or a cause turnover because if you're not shooting, you're not scoring. You know what I mean? So we try to slide and recover so well that I want to lead the country, and I know it's not a kept category, but I want to have the most shot clock violations this year. I think that's our goal is to be below 10 goals against average, because I think our offense and our face-off units are so prolific that if we can keep teams under 10, we're going to win games. And
It's
yeah.
interesting that you say 10 because I feel like I've talked with coaches more recently since the shot clock got involved, and it's like, well, maybe that should be 12, for defenses now that the shot clock is there.
Well, so when I got here last year, I looked at their last year's schedule, and in my first meeting with them, I said, "Do you guys know what your record would have been if you held every team to 9 or less goals?" And yeah, not really anyone knew. It took a couple of guesses, and I said, "You would have went 15-1 and won the conference." But it's just those couple games where they got to 11 or whatever it was that cost them. And we said, we had a very talented offense last year. I think we'll have a very talented offense this year, and that was only not true one game. First game of the year, we lost to Boston University 9-7. Every other game that year where we held the team under 10, we won the game. So it's easier said than done, but it helps when our faceoff guy was going like 70% at the beginning of the year. So
Oh, man.
makes life a lot easier on us on the defensive side when that's happening.
Yeah, we've got a great face-off guy this year, which I'm looking heavily forward to.
Yeah.
Are you asking, like when you have a good face-off guy, are you asking your defense and just your team in general to play a little bit more transition? Like take a little bit more risk when you know you can get that ball back as easy as you can?
I think I'd play that way even if we had a bad face-off guy. I think, for years, a lot of people, Coach Kerwin, who's now at Dartmouth, right? He's kind of been coined with like practicing transition, right? I think for years everyone was playing 6v6, and they had the mindset at Tufts like, well, everyone's scoring in transition, so why don't we practice transition a lot more and really revolutionize our game. But Salisbury was playing transition way before. Like teams have played fast for years, and I just think we as a defense, we practice 6v6 all the time, and it's very hard to score in 6v6 in today's era of lacrosse, in my opinion. So, but scoring 4v3 is pretty easy, right? Scoring in 5v5 situations where you don't have all 6 out there, you don't really may not practice that much. And then if they go while we're subbing, that's those slides are a little longer than when it's 6v6. So, but it's definitely a big part of who we are. We actually used to be more of a two-way midi team, kind of classic Albany style when the Thompsons were there. Now we are definitely all O mids and D mids, but we practice shooting every other day on the defensive side. I say post score goals all the time. We have one of our LSMs is as good as a in between the lines guys there is in the country. He had 10 plus points last year. We had 4 different D middies score last year. So we're pushing. It's definitely a big part of who we are.
Are there any principle based pieces there where your guys are maybe saying, hey, first to the midline? What are you teaching your poles as far as getting upfield?
Yeah, it's really just first 3 up and out.
Got it.
We have our clear, but before the clear happens, if you can play fast, especially our 2 all sons that played for us last year and they're back this year, and our other guys too. But they're very good at when that shot goes, they're out, and our goalies know hit those guys, and our D middies are the same way. So the first 3 basically will push. It could be 2 close guys if somehow it just happened that way. We had a couple close defenders score last year too, so. Yeah, it's just really be an athlete, play fast.
Yeah.
First 3 up and out, and usually try to draw someone and pass it to our attackmen that are much better at shooting than us, right? But obviously, if they don't play you, we got to make sure they pay for that.
This is a really interesting conversation that I didn't think I'd have because I thought I was going to get into a 1v1 defense, which of course you want to have great. Like if you don't have to slide, you probably love that. But the fact that you're saying, hey, we're going to be a quick sliding team or a slide and recover team. It takes a lot of courage in my mind because you go up to these teams in Division I and you're saying those guys can sling it like anybody. And so you leave yourself vulnerable sometimes in those scenarios where if you were just, more one-on-one, not going to slide as much, you kind of leave it up to the one guy. So it takes a lot of courage to play that way. I'd love to kind of get into the nuance, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think for any fans out there, if you watch our last year's MAC championship against Sacred Heart, who's a program we obviously have a lot of respect for, a very talented team. They were ranked most of last season. It's funny, we played 2 very different styles of defense, and I think you could see that on display. They are very much a win your matchup team, and they're very good at it. They have their D middies last year were exceptional, and for us, I just felt the best fit for this team that I took over was we were going to slide and recover. We graduated 2 all-conference defenders and an all-conference D midi. A lot of people didn't think we'd be very good, and for me, I'm like, I don't really care what anyone outside these walls say, right? We're going to go be the best we can be. And I knew we'd win. And yeah, I think so. We practice sliding and recovering every day. And I actually call it the Duke drill because I kind of like stole parts of it from Duke. Going to those conventions and hearing that was Coach Caputo there, I think, who is a legend. I don't think he's a legend, and at the Division I level, 90% of the teams, if not more, are running some sort of what I call pairs offense, right? Which is like 3 two-man games going on at the field at once. And then if they're not running it, they're running some sort of BS play that eventually turns into pairs in their motion offense, so to say, right? So we practice, we basically set up a drill that practices sliding and recovering to a pairs offense and how we want to slide to, right? There's a lot of different ways to slide to it. And we practice those different ways. And we do it so quickly. And when they dodge the alley, you throw forward, and actually the other guys are already in the ball act. So we basically make it more difficult in practice than we do in games. And there's times where it's like, it's impressive how fast our guys can read and react and go to the right spots because we practice so much. And then when it comes game time, even in our scrimmage, like it's really hard to beat a 6v6 because theoretically, what are offensive teams trying to do? And this is what I hate about these high school highlight tapes I watch. Everything's one dodge and a shot. It's like that is not college lacrosse, right? You got to dodge, draw, slide, move it, dodge, draw, slide, move it, dodge, draw, slide. And it's usually, right, offensive teams are coaching that if you can get a defensive slide and recover 2-3 times, you're probably going to get a good shot. And for us, it's like we think we can actually slide and recover faster than you can move the ball. And that's kind of what we pride ourselves on, and we're very good at it.
How much are you favoring leaving the backside open as opposed to leaving obviously you want to cover the crease first, but if you're sliding all the time or you're sliding more than usual, there's going to be somebody open somewhere. So I'm just interested in how you think about it.
So we're a little unique in that I do think the best defense is the near man defense, but I also think it's very hard to coach a near man slide defense. So we actually, like our slide schemes are colors, and if you hear us yell 2 colors, that means we have 2 different slide packages based on where they're going. So if you hear us yell, I'm going to make up colors, so not that I give away our colors on air here, but I'll make up 2 colors. Let's say red green, okay? So if you hear red green, red is saying we're going to slide red. Our slide package will be red if they go down the alley, and the second color green is we're going to slide green if they sweep. Because I think especially in pairs offense, it makes more sense to slide down the alley with this guy, and I think when they sweep, it makes more sense. So
you're calling that every possession?
Yeah, screaming. And I'm a very active coach where especially when they're on my side of the field, I'm yelling the whole time. Hey, we're red, green, you're the 2, ready to go, rotate, right? And then when they're on the other side, I like to empower our players, and I always kind of name a quarterback of our defense. And last year I had a senior captain from Chaminade that very high IQ, and whenever he was on the other side and they couldn't hear me, he knew exactly how I wanted to play defense, and he would yell out what colors were in it. He'd say who was hot, and he would say who was 2, and I try to put him on a guy that was maybe more on the crease, so he's not trying to cover the X guy while that's happening. So that's a little bit about our slides, but also I think a lot of teams, even at Division I level, we like to help from behind the cage a lot. So I think a lot of teams, if you're not sneaking, you're playing 5v6. You know what I mean? So we will happily have that defender covering X help up a lot until you make us pay with the sneak. And if you don't make us pay, they're going to be playing man down the whole game. And especially, that pairs offense is popular. So, there's the righty pair, the lefty pair, what I call a pipe pair. So those are 2 attackmen on the pipes, and sometimes they rotate. Another offense that's been popular in Division I is what I've coined, what we call on we name offenses. When I coach defense, my goal is that we're going to know the offense better than they know their offense, right? And so we name offenses, and when they come down and then we see their set, so we'll yell out pairs. Hey, they're pairs, and we know exactly what slide package we're running against pairs. Hey, they're NBA. So NBA is 5 guys in front. It's a front side 2-man game, a backside triangle, and then 1 guy at X. It's become very popular. We probably played 5 teams last year that ran that kind of look. And same thing, in that kind of look, they have 1 guy sitting at X all the time because you need the outlet back there, right? So we're helping from X constantly.
How much of that time when you're helping above cage does that guy get caught up above the cage and somebody else has to go back there and play that guy?
It happens. I would say probably more often than not, what might happen because we show it that guy so much is that we get caught in that what we call look away, where he's sitting at behind the cage and we're sitting in front. He's
Hang
hands
up.
free. Yeah, hang up. Yeah. Whatever term people use, but we don't mind it, right? Because we're in the shot clock era, right? So you can be hang up other all day, man. Like you're not practicing. You might practice that maybe 10 minutes a week. But your offense is pairs, your offense is whatever. You're not practicing, so we'll sit there all day and let that crock one out.
I might we're on the same wavelength. The offensive coaches that are listening to this are like, oh God, defensive guys just getting after it. But I can never understand it. I might be wrong, but it's clear we think about the same. I hate the goalie behind. I hate bringing the goalie behind and doing that handoff or whatever. Whenever I see it, I'm like, good God! Why don't offenses take advantage more? Just throw it to the freaking wing guy and take a shot.
Right away.
Yeah.
I
don't get it. Yeah.
And honestly though, I think teams like our team's getting pretty good at it. Because we do it so much that because they kind of know how our defense plays now, and we got caught in that hangman situation a lot, and they're getting really good at picking and slipping off it and getting some looks. So I'm getting to the point where it's like, man, maybe we do gotta force the issue a little bit. But
okay.
But we help a lot from behind, and we will definitely help from the backside as well. It just really depends on the looks. I think again, you heard me say it earlier. We want to be the ones dictating. So everyone, I'm telling you, man, if you want to be a Division I offensive coordinator, it's like run pairs and run big littles behind. And I feel like that's half the offenses out there, right? And everyone's running big little, but they're all doing it for different reasons, and you got to watch that on film. I talked about I'm a big math guy playing the odds, and when you watch it and you break it down and you clip it, right? So when I break down film, I clip everything. I clip their 6v6 offense, their out of bounds, their big littles, their inverts, and I put them in playlists. And when you watch big little after big little after big little after big little, you see what they're trying to accomplish, right?
Tendencies.
And there are some teams that they're running the big little just to get their attack bin, a shot, right? They're just running off it. He's not even looking for anything. They're just using that pick to get him a shot. There are some people that are looking to get the attack bin and get the switch so he can invert. There are some people that are looking to throw it back and let the guy push backside. There are some people looking for a skip pass. So when we watch that in film and we talk about it as a team, we will try to take, hey, they like to throw the skip top center. We're not going to give them that look. We're going to play, a certain way, right? We're constantly trying to make sure that you're not comfortable running what you like to do.
I'm a big stack and slap guy when it comes to supporting the picks. When you're talking about that action of on ball or the on ball side, you have two guys, and then off ball, you got the three, and then the guy behind it X. When you're defending the primary action, that the on ball action, how are you asking your on ball and off ball guy to play?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. So this was the first year I've really actually taught the stack and whack. And same kind of thing I said earlier. There was one day in practice where we practice all of them. We practice stacking wacky, we practice giving ground, we practice, the 4 or 5 different options you could play a pick. And then when we did big littles in our 6v6 session, I told the guys, do what you like, do what you want. And there were some guys in our team that are unbelievable stack and whackers, and there are some guys it's like you should never do that again. You're so bad at it, right? So I let them play to them, but I think there's definitely some things we like to finagle back there. I like if you run, sometimes if we think your big little is so dangerous that you're eventually going to get the invert anyway that they want, like if it's out of bounds. So one team we played last year, they were very dangerous with their big littles off end lines to the point where they always got the attackman on the short stick. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of us getting to that point, why don't we just, every time it goes out of bounds, let's just go on our invert defense, right? So, and it really messed them up. Because now it's like, they're so predicated around the big little, and all of a sudden it's like they're like, are they in a zone? Like, what the hell's going on right now? It's like, no, we're just in our invert defense because we think you're so good at it that you're going to get that switch anyway, right? If they run a little big, so if it's, not that many teams would do this, but sometimes you see it where the shorty's dodging a shorty and they set a pick with a pole. We will actually lock off. The shorty will get picked and he will lock off that pick. Mm-hmm. And now you get the pole on ball, theoretically, right? So we're always just trying to finagle what works for us, what we're comfortable with, but also trying to take away what they're comfortable with.
How are you teaching the on-ball guy to go over and under? And obviously it comes back to what's the comfortability level, but to me, I hate seeing a guy go over the pick 30, 40 yards away from the cage. It's like,
right.
It drives me
insane.
insane.
It's a location thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I compare it, it's like Steph Curry. Like, if you got Steph Curry out there, you got to go over the pick, right? But if you're within, if you're within that danger zone, that painted area that they can shoot from, you have to go over the pick, because if you go under it, he's going to come off that pick and shoot it. But yes, if you're behind the cage or 30 yards away from the cage, you should never go over the pick, right? Just create some space and go under it, man. Just run with it, and you'll be good to go. You know what I see a lot, our guys do, and I'm sure you might see it too. When a defender's on ball and they hear a pick coming, they keep retreating. And it's like, stop retreating, right? Like, you're making it easier for them, man. Just play defense. It doesn't change too much. And then once you hear the pick and you know it's coming, then you take the step back. Don't start retreating before the pick comes.
It's like blood in the water when you see a guy do that. The offense knows it.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
I'm interested. We call it the paint too. We've got it's kind of oblong. It's a very weird shape. Everyone's got a different shape. I saw a square one time. I was like, a square doesn't really make sense to me based on the shooting angles and all that stuff changing. But like you have that dangerous area. Do you have an area outside the dangerous area that you're like, this is when we should put hands on, or how are you determining those areas of the field that are dangerous for the guys?
Oh, that's a good question. One area that we like to maybe send a double would be near the box, especially off a face-off, But like outside of that, I would say the one really dangerous area that we talk about a bunch is goal line extended picks. And I think you have to either jump switch it or double it. I just think it's too dangerous. For a defender to fight through that. It's too much of an advantage for the offense, right? So outside of that, though, again, it goes back to what your strengths are. If you are a guy that can hunt and what I call shark, like if you can go be that shark and hunt that guy down, then go ahead and be aggressive outside the painted area. But I don't really want many stick checks, if any at all, inside the painted area. That's when you got to be fist and feet and trying to drive him out and trying to force him to a spot that we can easily slide to. But we're very fortunate. We have a very good. We don't bring in many transfers at Sienna, but we got a couple of local guys, and one of them is an absolute just 1v1 cover defender, and he's going to make life a lot easier for us this year, because I don't think we'll have to slide to him much. So he'll have the freedom to go out and play, but at the same time, that's not his strength. He's going to sit in a fundamental position. You know what I mean? I don't think we really have any guys that are. Hunting, so to say, right? I think our guys are very good at just playing fundamentally sound defense, putting their stick out in front, getting on hands when that dodge happens, and we want the offense to make very quick decisions. That's why we slide and recover so fast, right? Like, you have to react faster than we do, and the look you think might not there, we're jumping it. Like, we've anticipated it so well, we practice it so much that we're taking away your outlets and sliding to you, and now you gotta sometimes throw that big skip pass, and then our guys are so good at picking it off. We've had. It was a great, I think sometimes you hear in football like the QB coach marriage. I think I had a great marriage with my group last year. We were very much on the same page. They believed in what I was trying to, the philosophies that we were trying to play, and they bought into it, and obviously it worked out. We won the first MAC championship in 11 years at Sienna, so a lot of fun.
Coming in halfway through or right before the season, I don't know exactly what happened, but to accomplish that, that's awesome. So congrats on that.
Yeah. I walked into a good situation, right?
Yeah, there you go.
But yes, thank you.
I've got a couple guys that are going to go be Sharks this year. I've got an older group that's going to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm really trying to get into the weeds on how I teach the second guy to anticipate that the first guy is doing really well. He's putting a lot of pressure on that offensive guy. So there's going to likely be some type of, not turnover essentially, but the offense being under pressure and disrupted is going to make a potential for a play to happen. How do you think about that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's one of my pet peeves, right? Like, I talk about playing the odds all the time, and then you see a pole running down the field, and you see one of our LSMs about to jump him, and there's our close defender not pushing out in the attackman, right? And of course, we talk about it on film, like, it's like, play your odds, man. Go take that away. What do you think they want to do? They want to pass the attackman and go back on his side of the field, so don't give them what they want, So I think watching it on film and telling guys to anticipate when to push out on those adjacent passes is crucial, And I think on ball, I think it's a balance because I said I wasn't too much of a shark. I would shark at times, and when I was in college, and I think there's a balance though that you can't just be out of control, right? You could still play fundamental defense on their hands without, putting yourself out of position. Just relying on your teammates that they're pushing out as well, and that's why I had some of the best teammates in college. Man, they allowed me to be the player I was, and they knew when I was out there being that and out in the hands there, they were going to push out and let me kind of be a shark.
I think I'm just talking through this with you.
Yeah.
I love the combo, but I think I'm going to frame it in like a combo pressure. Like, hey, we didn't do a great job of comboing pressure there. Like we got the singular pressure on ball. You didn't do a good job of comboing that to potentially force a turnover.
Yeah, maybe, we have one of our colors is the color means we're pushing out adjacents.
Got
so
it.
maybe like if you see your pole about to jump it, maybe
really
you
good.
yell out red,
Red,
right? And that
red.
red means, whoever's near his guy, Jason passes, go push out of him because we like our matchup right now.
Yeah. It's funny, man. The offensive coaches, when they see me yelling on the sideline, they just like shake their head. It's like it's a whole different lifestyle, man. Defensive coaches, it's effort, it's intensity, it's all the time. Yeah. I know there's some defensive coaches that just sit there and that's their style, but I'm just like you. I'm very intense, but it's a balance. You don't want to do too much. You don't want to have the guys thinking too much.
And honestly, I wasn't much of a yeller on defense prior to this. I think it was one of those things I started because I wanted to play a certain way here at Sienna. I started yelling, and our guys played better when I yelled. So it's like, well, I guess I'm going to keep yelling. You know what I mean? And but you know what I would say though, to give the offense credit, I think there's more work that goes into being a defensive coordinator, but I think it's harder to coach offense. I think it's harder to build the synergy and the chemistry and play to your strengths and to score goals than it is to stop goals from being scored, in my opinion.
I want to go back to the V-hold really quick.
Yep.
I was listening to the ecological, the philosophy podcast. God, Jamie Monroe, thanks for that. But Andy Shea was talking about it, and he really opened my mind up to the V-hold. I was never really taught the V-hold correctly based on what Andy Shea was talking about, where you're engaging that backhand and really, attacking the lever, right? Basically like engaging the lever so that it becomes a hold more so than if you kind of just have it sitting. And I'm not saying that not doing that isn't a V hold. It's just another element to it. But I'm interested in how you coach that V hold because I agree with you, man. Like there's no reason not to be stick side at these levels, especially with what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and you know what? And honestly, I might have to listen to that one because I don't know if I know the intricacies of the V hold that well. What I was taught was, you have your bottom hand in the hip pocket, right? And you're not like, you don't want to like squeeze them because that's actually a hold, right? Mm-hmm. The stick's kind of 90 degrees from your body, and it's more about your stance, your athletic stance. You're not leaning forward because they can roll off of you. It's just you're in that stance, your stick's out, and then I'm a big believer in when they do roll, you give like a forearm shiver.
Yep.
Right? And that gives you that little bit of space to then, if you do need to bring this, you don't want to bring the stick too quickly because then they roll back on you, right? But you trail, you're patient, as we talked about earlier. And when he does commit to coming underneath inside, then you bring that stick back and you go for that trail position, top side of the field. Don't chase the stick, which I see all the time guys doing, like they go for the over the head check on GLE. It's like, man, that is not the spot to do that.
It's got to be the most times a defenseman has scored on is that exact spot over the head.
Yes.
I'll give a little bit of nuance to the Andy Shea stuff, but first of all, are you telling guys to dig up or rip up through the bottom hand leverage, or are you telling them to kind of just sit there?
I haven't honestly asked them to do either. I just asked them to do a V-hold. Okay. And I think as I'm kind of hearing it that way, I don't know what I would teach. And I think that's might be one of those things where it's like, what's our guys good at? Because to me, it's I'm not doing the V-hold to necessarily take the ball away. I'm just doing it to not get beat topside and to make sure that he can't. Because if you do the cross-check hold as he's coming around, if righty coming around X on the right side, if you're on a cross-check hold, he can do whatever he wants. He can question mark, He can shoot it off your hip. I mean, your hands are free, right? You can do whatever you want. But just having that stick on that side of the field is going to make him either go back to X or inside roll where the coma slide's coming, and but what did he teach? What did he teach lifting up?
So I think what he was getting at more so was what I call a pin, right? So like you can either, if you're in good position, you can go for the bottom hand leverage, like get up underneath his glove and rip, where the same thing on the opposite side you were talking about, where they have to take their hand off and there you have an advantage. Or you do what essentially is like a pin, where the way he explained it, and I've always thought the V hold was because you're making the V. This is how I explained it to like the younger guys. Like when I was younger, I thought the V hold was like this thing where you're making, almost that Spartan stance. Yeah. But the way Andy was talking about it is like when you engage the backhand, that lever makes the stick go from here, like out like this, to here. And so you're essentially like, I get what you're talking about. It can be called as a hold. But if you keep your feet moving, a lot of times, this is where the guys get really caught up, is when they throw that revo or they throw the pin, like the V hold here, and they stop their feet.
Yes. Or they don't continue to move their hips or whatever. Yes. No doubt.
So essentially what he was talking about was like, instead of kind of sitting here and pushing and driving, what you're doing is engaging the backhand lever and still moving, still doing all the things with your feet, but you're essentially pinning the stick across the body.
You. Interesting. And as long as, to my understanding of the rule, as long as he has somewhere to run to and you're not preventing him from running in at least one direction, it's not a hold, right? So even if you're pinning him, as long as he could assume he can run the opposite of where you're pinning him from, which is probably what Andy Shea's teaching to force the inside roll, then that's a good one. I got to dig into that more.
Yeah, text me. Go out with your guys. Text me how that went, man. I would love to know. That would be like the first time ever on the podcast we like talked about something.
For sure, man. This is the beauty of fall ball, man. At Division I, you get a lot of hours. Which is, I used to be Division III coach, so I coached at all three levels. But you get way more practice time in Division I, so we can work on whatever we want. It's a beautiful thing.
So we're like 5 minutes over the hour, so I don't want to hold you too much longer, Ryan. But how are you teaching that slide and recovery? Like, I know that's a huge question. That's a lot to unpack, but what are the kind of the nuances of having to slide that much, and how do you install it?
You start from kind of base level. I think good coaches are good teachers and good educators, right? And you got to be able to, what I think, make what might sound complex to other people, I'm trying to make it simple and almost like foolproof, right, for our guys. And so we draw it up on the whiteboard, we show film on it, we walk through it, and we do it full speed, right? So that's kind of like a little bit of the teaching method, is like you do all four of those things. Some people excel seeing it visually, some people like the whiteboard, some people need to walk through it, some people need to do it full speed. And we kind of break it down that way. Hey, here's what Pair's offense is. Here are the ways that we can slide. Let's walk through those ways, and now let's do it full speed. And and against especially Pairs, man, I think you could slide off the mirror, you could slide either adjacent, you could slide off the backside pair, you could slide off the ball side pipe. I guess theoretically you can slide off the backside pipe, but I don't really see that much. But we practice the other four spots all the time, and in that Duke drill I talk about, that's where we're practicing. It's not about taking the ball away. It's not about even your approaches, even though it's a big part of it. It is just, we're just telling the guys, whether it's our guys dumbing in as offensive guys, or if I have some offensive guys on my side of the field, they're just kind of either dodging the alley or just sweeping and throwing forward or throwing backwards. And we are just constantly, we are sliding to every dodge. It's like dumb, right? It's like skeleton defense in a way, right?
This is 6v6?
6v6, right? And we are sliding to every dodge, practicing whatever color scheme, slide scheme we're doing for that day or week or whatever, and constantly moving, and I could maybe send you a clip one day of what it looks like, but it's just constant. And we start by going simple, right? So you start with everything's an alley dodge throwing forward, right? So you slide, let's just say you're going to slide off the mirror. So they dodge down the alley, you slide off the mirror, and if they throw forward, we call it a U-turn recovery. We just kind of turn around and cover the guy that's right behind you, right? And then everyone else is strong, because the beauty of that slide package is that the other four can stay strong in their matchups. So then they throw it forward, and then we immediately dodge from the other corner. It's like the ball The other is we have the goalies in the back, they throw it, and then he immediately dodges the alley, and same thing, and we work on that U-turn. So then eventually we go from dodging the alley, now they could throw forward or throw backwards. So when they throw back after we draw a slide, we call that a rotate call. So now we're designating who's going to be the rotate guy in a pair's offense, whether you want to go across the top or the crease or whatever it might be. And so now we're repping out guys going down the alley, and they could throw forward or throw back. So now our guys got to make the decision: are we U-turning or are we rotating? So then once you get good at that, now you start adding sweeps in there. All right, so now you can go down the alley, throw forward or throw back, and now you can sweep and throw forward. And then once you get good at that, you can do a sweep and throw forward, throw back. So then all of a sudden, you're doing this so fast, 45-second reps, constant slide and recover. You're doing maybe literally 15 slides in 45 seconds, and everyone's moving in unison. We put D-middies on the pipes. We put close defenders up top. We put everyone everywhere because of the way we play and how much we slide and recover. You got to get good at all 6 spots, so to say. So that has definitely helped us. That's been the biggest thing for us. And then once we play live 6v6, because we simulate it so fast in that drill,
Sure.
it's just easy, honestly, for us.
Are you going into a game thinking that some guy that's potentially playing a not so great player is going to help out with the team defense, or maybe you're going to slide from that guy more? How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely, we try to, again, play to strengths and tendencies. There's times where we say, if this guy goes to his left, do not slide. There are times where we say he's not a stretch shooter. So if they sweep, you can help in more. But sometimes if that guy's a stretch, if they're sweeping and the forward pass is a stretch shooter, we're going to go play him and slide from a different spot. Just a good example of this, and this is the beauty of Division I lacrosse and the high level and the guys that can handle so much. Last year in that conference championship, we were trying to go slow to alley dodges, right? And they scored twice on an alley dodge. Okay, so it's like, all right, we got to change it. We got to slide to this. So then we say we're going to slide to alleys and we're going to hard rotate the throwback. Well, then they scored 2 goals after that on big skip passes. So that's like, all right, well, we're going to slide to alleys and we're going to be slow to rotate now. And then we finally, that was like the happy median there for the rest of the game. So yeah, we're constantly talking about it. We're constantly kind of playing the odds and seeing who do we think's dangerous or who do we have to slide to. I have some confident D-middies. I think they can win matchups, and I trust them until they can't. And then we'll start sliding to them. So yeah, it's a constant thought process.
It's interesting that you were sliding and recovering so much, right? Or you're saying that you guys are doing that a ton. How much uneven work are you guys doing? Because it sounds like you're doing it a ton just in practice, kind of live and in very even scenarios. But like you'd think that you guys would be doing uneven drills all the time, which I'm sure you are. But how much is that put in?
It's a good question. I would say, and when we do uneven stuff, but I think we do it more for transition stuff. I don't necessarily think I've ever. It's funny. I thought about actually this week, just random driving. We do a lot of drive. I just recruited in New Jersey this past weekend, 3.5 hours there, back, whatever. So I get a lot of time to think to myself, listening to your podcast. I thought about this week maybe doing like 7 offense versus 6 defense, right? And not worrying about matchups, but just covering the most dangerous guy and leaving the least dangerous guy open. But again, honestly, man, we are so fast at slide and recovering that it's not even like a numbers thing. I think actually what I think the hardest part is when we slide and recover and they do get it to the backside is being able to reset those slides so quickly. But because I think we do it so quickly in that Drill we do every day or every other day, that it has become second nature for us. We've played some offenses, just fully transparent. Like if your offense is random, we struggle against it. Where we have to decide, like, I don't know, there's been times in film I pause it and it's like, and I'm like, who do you think's the best guy to slide? And like my senior captain's like, Coach, I have no idea, because it's just how random they do things. But if you're predictable in your offense and we know what you're going to do, I can promise you we'll be prepared for it, and we're going to make life very difficult for you.
I wish we didn't say that on the podcast, because now all the offensive coaches I play against are going to be like, damn it, we got to be more creative. But yes, 100%. Man, we agree on a ton. I learned a ton on this episode. I wish we could go 20 minutes more, but I like to keep these succinct, man. I do feel like it can run a little bit. But what we can do is in the springtime, let's have another podcast episode, man, because there's 100 other things.
Or in the summer when I'm there, I could do it in the studio there,
There you go.
Be a good time. So, but yeah, Zach, appreciate you, man. You've had some real good guests, and honor to be part of it, man. And hopefully, if there's one person that took something from this podcast today, man, then it was, it was a success.
Awesome, man. Hey, please send over that drill too. I'd love to put it like at this part of the episode. But again, Coach Lanigan, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So this is part of our ongoing drill bank series where we have coaches share their favorite and most used drills for you to take back to your own teams and use as you see fit. So this is Coach Lanigan's 4v4 drill that we discussed on the podcast. He is going to evolve this 4v4 drill, which he calls the Duke drill, to a 6v6, and I'll show you that at the end of the episode. So what you're going to set this up as is obviously having two pairs on both sides of the field. So you have the right side pair, top right, here ball. You have the on-ball pair as well as the off-ball pair here on the left side of the field. You also have two players that are not necessarily part of this drill. They're there to kind of simulate a cycle or an exchange of the ball to the backside, which you'll see, which gets a lot of really, fast action. There's no waiting around. You have to slide and recover a lot, and you have to communicate this through. Now, we have two separate parts of this 4v4. It's either going to be over the top or it's going to come from the inside here. You also see a lot of the times there's going to be a U-turn recovery, which is a great way to not have the whole defense have to slide and recover, but actually just, U-turn and find, that switch essentially is what it kind of looks like, where you don't have that whole team recover. The first one I'll show you here, we'll just go through it. It's going to show a live over the top, and then I'll show you a second variation of the drill that is the slide is going to come from the inside crease defender, and then we'll go to a 6-on-6. All right, so the second variation of this drill is going to be the crease defender here is going to make the slide as opposed to the adjacent over the top defender. So you'll see essentially the same situation play out on ball where you can have the U-turn recovery, but if they get over the top, most likely they're going to send a slide from this inside defender here as opposed to the adjacent top defender. So we'll play that out. All right, now to put it all together, you have this 6v6 version of the same pairs look that we're talking about. The only change is you have these two defenders that you've added now to cover both of these like pipe attackmen or pipe offensive players. So you'll see a little bit more intricate slide recoveries. You'll see some of these pipe defenders come across crease to cover or, add as part of the rotation. You'll see a lot of this. If they get topside, they're definitely going to be sliding from various areas. So you can, use this drill. You can say, hey, we're going to come from the crease each time, or we're going to come from over the top each time, or you can have them free play. But you do have the extra defenders, and there's a lot of pressure put on these pipe defenders when you're sliding from crease or even over the top, because it leaves this pipe attackman or offensive player open. So that is really the kind of balance you have to play. So you'll see these pipe defenders cover the crease and then recover to their guy, or they're fully sliding, and you'll see one of these topside defenders have to really crash back pipe to cover the fill that's being left open. So we'll play it. So as you experiment with Coach Lanigan's Duke drill here, especially in the 6v6 portion, feel free to, add training wheels in the beginning. Say, hey, we're only going to do this type of slide here and rep it out. And then change that as well, saying, hey, we're only going to slide from this portion. With my defense, I'm looking to very much have the training wheels on. And then as they get more experience with it, take those training wheels off, take the bumpers off, and see if your guys can get a great slide and recovery going. So, really great stuff from Coach Lanigan. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this.